workshop. Before we even get started, I just wanted to say you all are amazing for even just being here today. I know you have a lot going on, and you are students and parents and probably 1,000 other roles that you play every day. And so that's why it makes sense that our attendance is not sky high through the roof, because, you know, it takes a lot of discipline to put yourself first and to do this. And we'll talk about that today. So just wanted to give you a big kudos for being here today. What we're planning on doing is really just helping y'all learn a little bit about some healthy and research-based parenting strategies to overcome these difficult times. So you might hear me say a couple different times, like, hey, this worked for me and my family. And that's because it's research-based. A lot of this is from the American Academy of Pediatrics. And after our time today, we're going to send you a great list of different resources that kind of backs up a lot of the things that we're talking to you about today. We're not child psychologists, but we've gone through it. And so we wanted to share some stuff about that. And we hope you have a better understanding of some good parenting habits, that you can gain insight into how to take care of yourself, which often gets neglected as both a person and a caregiver. So we will go over those things today. And I just wanted to share with you before we get too much into it, who are we? What do we do? And then I hope that we can hear a little bit about you as well. So my name is Monica Bermicki. I'm the supervisor for academic coaching. I've been doing this role for almost 4 years. And when I started the pandemic in March, I had a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old. So we were in a apartment at the time, 2-bedroom apartment, and my husband was getting his PhD. He hadn't yet finished. So I was faced with a lot of challenges, as you guys, I'm sure, were as well, with space and what do you do? The kids were in school and now they're not. How do we have time for ourselves, and also all this other stuff going on, and so many questions. Now my kids have grown up a little bit. I got a 1-year-old. We've moved to another house. My partner has received his PhD. He made it. It's amazing how much has happened so far, even in this pandemic. And so I've learned a lot along the way, and I hope that we can chat about it today. Also, just wanted to point out that, like I mentioned, I have, I'm the mother of 2 neurotypical cisgender daughters. They're under the age of 5. And so the story and things that I'm going to share today is my lens, and it might not be the same for you. And I grew up with a single mom. I know that that's a reality, and that adds a new dynamic. And so just wanted to point that out today, just what lens that I'm coming through. And again, pointing out that we're not the experts, but we have learned a few things. So I'm going to close this here really super quick, because I feel like someone else just came in. Hi, Sonia. All right. So let's move on to my co-presenter. Val is going to share just a little bit about herself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you guys were able to join us today. I'm actually a psychology adjunct, part-time coach, and also I work with adult ed students trying to get their GED. So 99% of that population are parents. I personally don't have my children with me, but in this pandemic, I was privileged enough to be able to support my sister, who's 5,000 miles away, and still felt like, we were closer than ever. We're used to this online environment, but I think at this particular time, more involvement was required, better communication, and other strategies that, as Monica pointed out, we normally might be implementing, but in these circumstances, we have to do a lot better, or maybe try to be more efficient in order to continue functioning the way we were doing pre-COVID, right? So hopefully the information that we present today it's going to be helpful for all of us. And we're going to have a Q&A session. As I put in the chat, I'll be moderating it. So any questions that you have at any time, please feel free to unmute your mics or type it in the chat. And then if there's something that is missing or maybe you're not so sure, at the end of the session, we'll have a QA portion as well. Okay. So again, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Val. So we'll get a practice in using that chat now, or if you want to unmute yourself. We'd love to just hear, we've got a few minutes to hear a little bit about you, who you are, what makes up your family unit, and anything that you're hoping to learn today. So please put that in the chat, or I'd love to hear a couple people talk on the mic.
So right off the bat, when COVID hit, I knew my kid was not going to be homeschool. It was not going to be a homeschool kid. So we were struggling with getting him to focus, and especially since school started, he's in first grade. It's been a very big struggle because he needs like that social environment and the teacher, being in contact with the teacher. But yeah, but me and my husband are both working from home, as well as me going to school. He is technically working a full-time job at home and trying to keep on track of our son's homeschooling, and I'm trying to fill in where I can. So yeah, it's very tight schedule for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So Monica, we have lots of sharing in the chat. So
Great.
Welcome Dahlia. She has a 3-year-old daughter, and she was able to go to daycare before, but now her grandma is taking care of her twice a week. So Dahlia's struggling with everything, that has to happen at home, and I assume studying, but still she's smiling, so that's great. Dahlia, you got this. Also, it's very hard to have to not having enough time, maybe have to sometimes reject requests to play with her daughter, which I'm sure that's really hard. So also we have Sonia. Welcome, Sonia. She's a single mom, wonderful mom of 4. So she's having a hard time staying on track with school, like all of us. So yay, welcome to the team. But she seems to be very resilient and just taking one day at a time.
Thank you guys so much for being here, Linda, Dahlia, and Sonia. Again, kudos that you took the time for yourself today to just see if you can take away a couple tips and strategies. So let's dive into that. Here's a couple of the things that have helped me, and we'll dive into this a lot more. But the importance of addressing your children's fears, keeping healthy routines, so crucial, and self-care. So those are our main topics that we'll get into with a lot of other really important stuff here. So addressing children's fears, they are going to have them. They probably already have. And really ensuring that you're answering their questions simply and honestly, being really open is going to help their own mental health as they grow up, having a safe place to process these things. And the one thing that I want to stress over and over again today is a topic that a lot of moms feel, which is something that I've just heard a little bit ago, is this idea of mom guilt and feeling like you're not really ever doing enough. And I just wanted to stress, and something that I learned and have to keep learning, is just that you are human, right? That we have to adjust our expectations, and we need to possibly be okay with not having all of the answers and being a little imperfect at times. I know there's days when I feel like I'm literally cleaning the entire day, and then at the end of the day, it still looks crazy messy. And I'm like, what is going on? And how that leads into what I wanted to share is just finding resources to help if you don't have all of the answers and all the words to express to your kids why they can't go to school or why they have to wear masks or things like that. These are two resources that I found. This little Sesame Street video has helped our family tremendously. It just kind of goes over some scientific, real-based, is it okay to go in the swimming pool? And how long do I need to wash my hands? And, just things in a really kid-friendly way. And then this is a resource, A Kid's Guide to Coronavirus, from the American Academy of Pediatrics, free for you to download and just read at story time and kind of begin to normalize a little bit of like what's going on for them and, some of the disappointments that they're having as they're missing out on things. And whatever you can give them to control in such an uncontrollable time is really helpful. And so I'd recommend really helping them understand like how to properly wash their hands. In my family, we're like singing the happy birthday song as we're doing it, so they know kind of how long to do it, or helping them learn how to put on the mask. These are things that they can control, which kids often feel a lot more just stable and safe when they feel like they have some level of control. And recognizing your child's feelings, again, is a way to promote healthy mental health even at a young age. Children can also manifest some anxiety. And so we need to reassure them in regards to not exactly like everything's going to be okay, but just helping kind of calm and give them some answers, helping them process their feelings. And one way to possibly do that is to provide a feeling chart where you're helping younger kids understand putting some words to kind of how they're feeling. A lot of kids, and Linda was talking about, my kid needs that socialization, and they may be feeling lonely, but yet are acting out and they don't know why, and you're getting frustrated. And so it's a different conversation if they're able to say, hey, I'm lonely and I'm missing my friends, or I'm really scared that grandma's going to get the virus because she's older. Those are some conversations that allow them to unpack their worries and their anxieties. In older kids, you can model that behavior by you sharing yourself how difficult things are or what it means to be resilient. I really wish I could go into a restaurant and just sit down without a mask. And I miss those things, like sharing that. And I'm sure you must miss hanging out with your friends and going out to eat and, helping them understand that you are going through this and that you guys can get through it together. Your kids are more resilient than sometimes we give them credit for. And like they are going to get through that, especially if they see that you're also processing things with them. Something that we've seen coming up, especially here in my family, but this is something that's happening kind of across the board, is children getting really anxious if people are leaving the house and coming and going and not really talking about where and how long and what they're going to do to stay safe. So it's a really simple thing, but if you're noticing that there's like a lot of angst when you're transitioning from things, just taking some time to really flesh out like, hey, I'm going to be having my mask on. I will wash my hands as soon as I get home. I'm just leaving really quick to go to Walgreens or whatever. So again, some practical steps that you can take to promote some really healthy habits and good mental health at a young age. Keeping healthy routines in the midst of so much uncertainty and unprecedented routines are all over the place. And now we're 7 months in, we've gotten a little bit further down the road, but I don't know about you, but when it started for me, they like sleep schedules were all over the place. There was temper tantrums. There was just like lots of mood swings up and down. And that's because we were just kind of taking it minute by minute. And if you can take a second to really plan out what your days are going to look like, again, your kids will feel a lot more in control. You will feel more in control. And you'll be able to cope a lot better with what's going on. And so I have a sample schedule here. I'm sure you've seen some of these around, but this is just one of these important reminders to have a set time where everyone's waking up and getting dressed and really starting the day. It's super, super important for yourself. We'll get to this, but for kids also to be active. If they've got a lot of like virtual school, to try to break that up along the day. And that's another important tip that we give to students as well, to not just like sit down and try to consume all this information at once. And then finding some independent things. I know that, Dahlia has a 3-year-old and I have young kids too. And it's sometimes hard to find things that they can do by themselves, especially that isn't like just screen time. But giving them, puzzles or books or something that they can, try to keep busy. Or even my 4-year-old like loves to have jobs to do. They don't always get done right, but those are just some things that you can integrate into your schedule if you're not already doing, to provide you with a little bit of space to get done what you need to do as well. And so that's what we're going to get into here. I know all of you are students, and so we're going to do a little time management exercise. And we have 2 different schedules. One of them is your COVID-19 kids are at home schedule. And the other one is a sample schedule that we give to students as we're coaching them, kind of assuming that life is normal, or let's just say pre-COVID. And so we're going to take a look at each one of these schedules. And then I'd love to hear from you guys about what are some of the similarities in these schedules and what are some of the differences. And we can kind of talk a little bit about your time management and how that's working out. So this is a little bit bigger picture of the COVID-19 kids at home schedule. I'll give you a couple uninterrupted seconds to look at this. And then the next one is our sample schedule that we have been giving out pre-COVID. This person more than likely doesn't have kids or it's not integrated here. All right. So let's go back to that first slide. And I'd love, since we have a small group here, I'd love to hear some people off on the mic if possible, if you want to just take a minute to unmute yourself. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, feel free to put in the chat. What are some of the similarities that you see in these 2 time management schedules?
The class times and days didn't change at all.
Okay, great. So the class times, what kind of times are you seeing where the classes are?
Like Tuesday and Thursday for math, 9 a.m. to 11. Sorry, it's a little hard to see.
Yeah.
And like the history class is same time, but the rest of the day is filled in with family time instead of work.
Great. So Lisa was talking about, or Linda, sorry, was talking about how a lot of the classes are in the daytime hours, not necessarily the nighttime, where more than likely you'll be needed for some family activities. What are some other similarities and differences between these schedules?
Looks like they're not working anymore. They just have family time in the evening instead of work.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know that's not always the reality. That's not always possible. On top of, having 2 kids and working full time as a supervisor academic coaching, I was also teaching another class as an adjunct, and it becomes a lot. But this is kind of our ideal schedule. And so, again, we cannot be superhuman. And so if you have some flexibility to make your schoolwork, your work, your actual livelihood that they are doing outside of family, that is going to help your mental health quite a bit. So I did go ahead and replace that. Anything else anyone wanted to mention? Val, is there anything on the chat that you wanted to say?
I didn't notice any comments in the chat, but I was just gonna highlight that, just like Dahlia pointed out, it looks like the verse is not working anymore. And unfortunately, that has been the case for many people that due to COVID, they lost their jobs or they're being furloughed. And so their schedule dramatically changed, you know, from one day to the other. Now some schedules are coming back, which is good news, except that now we've kind of got used to our rhythm and then we have to change it back. But what we'd like to reflect with these schedules is that they really work, and it helps stay everyone on the same, literally the same page. It helps us manage anxiety, and also when difficult decisions must be made. So maybe you need to work because you're the only support of your family, then maybe taking 4 classes this semester is not going to be a good decision for you. And that might be something that you want to talk to your advisor, your coach, because as Monica mentioned, it would be great if we'd be superhumans, but we're not. So we can't do everything great at all times, every time, and especially during this pandemic time. So just don't feel that you're not doing enough or that there should be something else. Just make sure you know your options and talk to your advisors, coaches, even your professors, because keeping a schedule is not easy, but it's definitely helpful to design one in the best manner possible so you can keep as many of the obligations that you have, personal, academic, and professional, to be able to meet deadlines and other topics that we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think just hanging there would be what I wanted to say, and that some difficult decisions must be made. Mm-hmm. But it's important in order to overall continue doing well.
Mm-hmm. And just a reminder that we as academic coaches are here for you in your individual personal situation. So you can see that the classes are mapped out here, the darker color, but the study time for each of those classes is also planned out. And some of you may have classes that are just on Blackboard, like you have to go through it and kind of keep your own deadlines. And so working with an academic coach, we can actually plug in some time that you don't necessarily need to sit on at a screen and do the class, but that's the time that you really work through the Blackboard and all the stuff that you have to do. So yes, time management is so crucial, not just for your kids and your family, but also for you to manage all the various roles that you've got going on. So just a couple other points before we move on about healthy routines to keeping those. It's glad to hear that, you're leaning in, a couple of you, the grandmothers helping out, whatever you can do to find the support and help that you need. I know it's so hard right now, but just keeping in touch with loved ones is good for you and the kids. There's a helpful resource here that we'll send you the link to about an app. It's called Caribou that I use with my mom that's in California, so she can kind of read to the kids and FaceTime, Skype, whatever it is out there that you can play a game or do something like that with a loved one. It helps to feel connected and for the kids to feel supported. There could be a lot of behavior stuff that goes on with kids during this time as we're all cooped up and they're not getting the same level of connection with their peers. And just a reminder to use a positive discipline whenever possible. And so really ensuring that you're letting your kids know when they're doing things well and really celebrating those things. We use, and there's a lot of research that talks about timeouts when it gets too intense, but that's kind of like that negative consequence. So something we use to counterbalance that is this reward chart, where my bigger girl can earn stars, and then the stars turn into, special events or an ice cream or something that they really feel special. And that's really my last point about this is try to, even though it's like the same every day and it can get kind of like I'm always with my kids, and but just try to celebrate the time that we do have as much as possible. I mean, I'm being real about like that's not always like the first thing on your mind, but to have some special time where you might be able to get outside. Or this is a picture of my girls here at the Emma Long Park that has a little sand, a little water. You have to make reservations, and it's just like a special time for me to connect with them in the midst of everything going on, to just have that creative space to just be. So that's the importance of healthy routines is really crucial at this point. So we're going to move on to Val's presentation about co-parenting.
So as Monica mentioned, it's kind of hard to keep balance of everything, but we need to do our best. Sometimes we have the support of a husband, a wife, or somebody at home that lives with us. Sometimes we don't. And so I thought this was a helpful video that presented some strategies in case that happens to be your situation. So hopefully you guys see this. They're very simple strategies, and it can be helpful not only if you have somebody at home, but also definitely if you have to work with somebody that is not living with you. One of the points that we had before also emphasized keeping in touch with your loved ones. We understand like sometimes adult situations happen, and in this volatile environment, sometimes we don't address issues in the most healthy manner at all times. However, please remember that children are not able to make decisions. And even if there are some problems between adults, that shouldn't translate to the children. So remembering, keeping that in mind, remembering that we need to set healthy boundaries and limits will definitely help when the time comes that we're not so calm maybe to make some decisions. Having that schedule that we talked about will definitely help you refer to like a plan, a map, or some kind of guide in a situation where maybe things that might not be so clear. Can we go to the next slide? So all of you shared that you are already with your children at home. Some of you homeschooling them, some of you being able to get some help from others. But what happens when you're still carrying the child in you, right? So in this case, this illustrates an essential worker. So this person not only is pregnant and having the issues that any pregnant person goes through, but also having to work, having to keep appointments. We know that unfortunately some parents have, due to the pandemic, have decided to postpone some medical appointments. We ask you to please reconsider if that's the case. Get information from your doctor and nurses, because some schedule things such as tests or vaccines, it would be helpful if you do it at the time that you need to do it. And always, if you happen to be taking a class at ACC, some very limited classes are on campus, please follow the recommendations and know that whenever something needs to change, ACC will be there to make the correct adjustments. So managing stress is something that sounds a lot easier said than done. But hopefully the next slide will help you with some strategies to achieve that, and while preparing for the future. And in the case, if you happen to be an expecting parent, to be able to get still some enjoyment and rest during this particular time. You want to go to the next slide? All right, so if you happen to be an essential worker, or if you're working from home, you still have to deal with your supervisor and other coworkers, right? So what happens if you happen to be like Linda? She's a student, she works from home, and also she's a full-time parent. So I'm not sure about Dahlia and Sonia. Would you guys like to share? Do you happen to be working right now?
Yes, I'm working from home full-time.
Okay.
I'm also working full-time.
So this definitely applies to you guys. Thank you for sharing. So, you know, this is not a strange situation. You just saw all of us in the same boat. Most of us, we still need to make a living. And having the extra care of our children, whether they're yours or somebody else that you happen to be providing care for, still good to have communication channels open and to be transparent as much as possible. So again, some boundaries might need to be changed in order to keep that balance, that you don't feel you're always working or you're always catching up. that schedule again comes super handy. And communicating that your reality has changed. Now you have to, maybe there's some meetings that you need to take at a different time, or maybe you cannot join every meeting, depending on your work schedule. Some things might need to be reassessed, or some expectations might need to just simply change. But none of this can happen in a healthy way if we're not communicating properly. So please try to take the time to always tell the people that you're working with, particularly your supervisors and coworkers, that are the ones that need you to support a team and to continue contributing, that what is your situation, as much as you want to share, and maybe you can all together can find a new way to address the different responsibilities that you have. This also would apply specifically for your supervisors and coworkers, but also in case that you have to, you're a professor, or coaches, if you have to miss an appointment, we completely understand. It's just to emphasize how communication and transparency definitely make a difference. Can we go to the next slide?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
So self-care, if you hear nothing else today, my hope is that you would just remember the importance of self-care. And I know as a mom, you're thinking, I have no time for anything. How am I going to spend time for yourself? But the reality is that you cannot give to others if you don't first give to yourself. If you're empty, you're not filling yourself with anything enjoyable that's caring for yourself, you will not be able to be as present, as flexible, as understanding, as patient, all the things that are required of you to be a parent, to be a coworker, to be a partner. It's really, really challenging. And I don't say any of this to increase your mom guilt, because I know that's already there, of like, oh, I'm not taking care of myself either. But just really as a reminder, in love, and that I truly think we need to care about each other, and we have to care about ourselves. And so in a really good book, No Sweat by Michelle Seeger, she introduces the concept of this non-negotiable self-care habit. And it does not need to be a huge thing. You don't need to like go run 10 miles a day or anything crazy. It can be just taking a minute when you wake up to just sit there a minute longer and set an intention for that day. It can be stretching for 5 minutes while your kid is napping. It can be calling a good friend, getting outside, exercising. There's a lot of things that there's some ideas here, but it's really, really important for you to have that non-negotiable thing that happens every day. And the more that you require of yourself, the more you need to give to it. And we're being required to do a lot right now. And so whatever you can do to treat yourself, your actual physical body well by eating healthy. And I don't mean like you have to go ketogenic, like whatever. Like I'm talking about like 70% of the time trying to feed your body things that it wants to eat, and the fruits and the vegetables and the healthy proteins and the things that keep it going. And exercise, again, we hear it over and over again. I definitely am not talking about this major like CrossFit, like running crazy miles. It's just doing something, getting your body moving 20 minutes a day, where you're getting that physical activity, you're reducing your cortisol stress hormone, getting those endorphins going. Those are those chemical responses that your brain needs to really begin to process the information that you're learning in school. And getting enough sleep, I know, is easier said than done sometimes. My little 1-year-old was up at 4:30 today, and she would not go back to sleep to save my life. And it didn't matter how much I wanted to sleep. That was not happening. But finding some time for you to take those minutes, have a partner or a grandmother or someone, and actually letting them know, hey, I really could use an hour to just lay down, not being like, again, we don't have to be superhuman. We can ask, and we should ask. That's actually a demonstration of strength, to ask someone else for what you need. With that schedule, if you do have a co-parenting situation, saying, here's some time that I will be on and then I can be off, and vice versa, so that you can do some of these things. Even just taking a breath sometimes when the temper tantrums, when the crying, when all the stuff happens, just to remind yourself that you're present here in this moment and that it will pass. And if it does become too much that you can't cope with whatever's going on, that's a reality, and it's okay to face that and to get some help. We at ACC have counselors available that can just process some of this information with you, and maybe you just need a space to decompress. I'd highly encourage a journaling practice, again, even if it's 10 minutes or 5 minutes at the beginning, just to begin to write out all the things that are just clouding your mind, because that's part of that mom guilt, is that like negative self-talk. And one self-care habit could be just quieting those voices and telling yourself, 3, 2, 1 thing that you're doing well. Because I can guarantee that all of you are doing a lot of things well, whether it feels like it or not. The fact that you're here, that you're at ACC, and I mean, working full time, having 4 kids, like it's so impressive. And so just don't forget yourself in the midst of all that. Let's see, Val, did you want to speak a little bit about this?
Sure. I just wanted to make sure that we, hopefully throughout the workshop, you guys have picked up that although we have there are a lot of similarities and differences, like the schedules, our best bet would be to customize to our own situation. So of all the ideas that we presented today, maybe not all of them are useful to you. Maybe some of them are better than others. Just make sure that you do that kind of like personalizing your situation. Okay, so for example, if you have a 1-year-old, probably needs to sleep about 11 hours a day, versus you that are an adult, you need to sleep at least 6. So if you have a teenager is gonna probably get sleepy at about 1 or 2 a.m. versus a 1-year-old that probably at 8 p.m. it's already gonna be tired and ready to nap. So all those simple changes and adjustments, they're gonna make a difference in your schedule. And if you take them into account, you're gonna be able to get in a better situation to plan. Also, you'll free more time to do that self-care that is so important and so essential. And if at any point you're dealing with guilt, which is totally normal, I mean, we all want to do everything and we want to be everything to everyone in the best manner possible. But having that 24/7 is just not going to happen. If it does, it's going to cost us a lot of stress. It's going to cause anxiety, and that's totally normal. Our bodies are not designed to do that. So when that happens, if you ever feel it's affecting your performance, please remember that ACC has counselors available to all students. And they are free of charge. So if you don't know how to make an appointment, please talk to any of the coaches and we'll be happy to refer you. But maybe it's just, you just want to vent. Maybe you didn't do well on a test and you just want to talk to someone. That's why we're here for you too. And if there's something more serious, such as dealing with sickness, we know some people have had to deal with specifically with COVID or other diseases, but COVID right now is like the one that we're probably most scared about because we don't have a vaccine or treatment. And so it might be different. In very severe cases, some people have had to endure losses or being separated at times of being diagnosed or treated for this particular disease. So remembering to just try to be as much transparent as possible with your children. If they are under 10 years old, they don't understand logic. So telling them that everything is going to be okay might not be a good idea. saying that the actual situation also will not work. So please remember to customize, and we're going to send you resources where you can actually see what is better for your own situation. Okay, what doesn't fail, what is good is kind of like a universal thing that you can always apply, is always providing warmth and affection. Dalia was saying that you feel guilty when you have to reject the times that your child wants to play with you. I'm sure she doesn't like it, but she'll take it a lot better if you give her a hug, give her a kiss, and make sure you tell her, you know, mommy's doing this for this other thing or for school, and when I finish, I'd be happy to play with you. Or maybe you can take a 1-minute break. And at first she won't understand, but if you keep repeating that, if you give her that routine mode, she'll start to understand. And then you'll see how they'll start accommodating. One thing about children is this is amazing, is how fast they learn and how resilient they can become. So those are also tools that we can use in order to help them cope and help ourselves cope, right? And also minimize the guilt. So providing ongoing warmth and affection at all times, particularly when it comes to dealing with sickness or loss or fear. And if you happen to have to deal specifically with situation like death, just understanding that this is a process that is not, it doesn't go at the same pace for everyone. And getting the support that you need, guidance that you need from experts would be something to consider. And if you don't know where to go, please let us know so we can try to find some resources either in the community or if they're available at ACC, so you don't have to navigate all this alone.
So we just shared a lot of information with you. We'd love to just give a space. We have some time just to go around and talk about what you'd like to, what you're going to take away from this time today, what you felt like was helpful, or any questions that you have or things you want to talk about in a little bit more detail. So the floor is open for you for discussion. What, if anything, did you find useful today?
And it's okay to do self-care.
Yeah. What's been like your relationship with self-care so far? What, if anything, have you been able to fit in?
I think that just trying to, so I've been recently getting into skincare. And so in the evenings, I'm like, close the door. Y'all can deal without me until I'm out, you know, and then that's my time. I usually feel a lot better knowing that I have that time.
Good for you for closing that door. That's hard. Sometimes I'm like still.
It's very hard.
But I have like the door open and I'm like kind of listening, and I can like respond and interrupt my stuff that I'm doing. So that's pretty impressive.
They can do without me for 15 minutes.
Yep. That's good. Anything else you guys want to share? Maybe we can just start with the self-care practices Linda shared about her skincare. That's so great. Is there anything else that we're doing now for self-care we can share?
And maybe one thing could be, in case you're thinking of ideas, but you're thinking, well, I'd like to take a 1-hour bath, and you don't have 1 hour when you're creating the schedule. Maybe you want to break it up into, like, maybe in the morning you have coffee by yourself, reading your favorite book. That would be 20 minutes. Then, and while they're napping, children are napping, maybe you can just, I don't know, do some meditation or check out something that you like for the other 20 minutes. And then at night you can have another session. So although you don't have that hour alone exclusively for you, breaking it up into different times of the day might provide that recharging of good energies that is totally necessary to deal with the 24/7 schedule, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to share with everybody real quick, like, you know, my phrase for that has always just been like, you know, be nice with yourself, you know, treat yourself like you would treat your friends, right? You know, and like self-care, I think it was Samantha said the other day, self-care is like that oxygen mask on the plane, right? You got to put that thing on yourself before you can put it on your kids. If you put it on one of your kids and you pass out before the other two get it. So, you know, when it gets really hard to justify or make that time, realize that really you're doing for them, and even if it seems like in a roundabout kind of way.
Mm. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
So both Linda and Dahlia have shared that they, even though if they can dedicate to their children 5 minutes or 2 hours, that quality versus quantity is so important. Make it count as much as possible. And also, Dahlia mentioned her child misses playing with other kids. That is unfortunately how we're wired. You know, we are social beings, and it's a good thing at times, might not be at others, but particularly when they're growing up, the younger they are, the more they need it. Maybe we can supplement it at times, but if not, trying to find a way to, like, again, the online environment is not ideal for us, but children get used to it. And I spend, like, without exaggerating, about 5 hours playing with my 6-year-old and 1-year-old nephew. And I cannot comprehend how they don't care that I'm not physically present with them. And so I know that my sister tries to schedule this appointments with other moms, you know, that are in the same situation. And so, but the children play online, so they see each other, and of course it's not the same. And of course they will not feel the same thing as being running next to the other child, but at least they get to see that situation where they realize, oh, they can do it, I can do it too. This is we're still connected, and have that bond, especially with classmates. At least for my 6-year-old nephew, that's the one he misses the most. His friends are all his school friends, and for the neighbors, it's like he understands that he can't do that. Of course, being 6 years old, he has to wear a mask. But another thing that you might want to do, if you happen to have really good neighbors with children your age, and they are following CDC guidelines as well as you are, you might want to go to a park and, you know, keep social distancing, wearing masks, and have to supervise that half-hour play time or something like that. But of course, it's safety always comes first. But you know, it's another negotiation that you have to do, and it's going to take time for you to explain it to them, but it might help at this particular time versus not having any contact at all, particularly if you have one child, because that makes it more difficult, right?
Yeah, I have an only child, and it's very difficult for him.
Is he at home most of the time then?
Yes, and I was thinking that most of the parks were still closed, so especially since we have the spike, you know, in Austin, so we just haven't gone to any playgrounds or gone out to do anything like that. So we've been mostly keeping him from home and going on walks every day, but yeah, he definitely misses, like, having kids to actually play with. It's really hard on him.
Yeah. And what's the age of your son again?
He's 6.
He's 6, yeah. Yeah, we tried the, like, virtual play dates with a couple of her classmates, and it, at least for a 4-year-old, it just didn't work. It didn't work.
You have to have, like, an imagination. You have to have an active imagination, I think, in order to make that work. Some kids don't do as well with it.
I have to be honest with you guys. Like, I had to, because I have I'm not a psychologist. My background's in neuroscience, but I do teach psychology, so I have some background there. And I know that at that particular age, 6 years old, especially if it's the boy, they have so much energy, and they just need to burn that energy. And if they see you doing something, you know, they're although it's not the same level of modeling that you do for another child, but it really works. So what I do is I make sure that my sister's gonna, in the beginning, she had to be available, and so she would play with him there, but I was on the other side. And now, like I said, after a while, you know, they build that situation. So maybe what you want to try is, if you have other parents that are willing to do play dates, you have to be with your child, and the other parent has to be with the other child. And then you guys, the adults, be enthusiastic, be motivated, you know, suggest plays, or maybe, I don't know, games or dancing or something. And so that's how the children start understanding, oh, I see, this is, it's almost the same as if being in person, except that we're not, but they understand the mechanism and they become interested in doing that. It might work, it might not work, but I think it's worth a try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's taken a new level of creativity, that's for sure. Have you tried that, Linda?
Somewhat. I've tried. We haven't really tried doing games over Zoom, but it hasn't actually occurred to me. But he has some friends over Zoom, and he has a friend that he plays video games with, and then it's just slowly evolved to him watching YouTube videos while they're on the Zoom call and not talking to each other. So I think something different, like, yeah, because it hadn't occurred to me, like, okay, come up with a game for them to both play with.
Yeah, and it can be, my nephew particularly likes to build planes. So what they did is print all, because it was, it was another budget to have to buy all these planes for him. And so they just found a website that has models of planes, and they print them and then they put them together. So that takes about another hour or so. But then again, it might be a little bit of a task, but it's just like another thing. And then you're ensuring the psychosocial development of your child that is essential, right? So if at any point you're feeling like, oh, another chore that I have to do, well, this is the best one that you'll be able to do probably for the rest of your life. And don't forget, they'll take care of you when you're old. So that's a plan, right?
Right.
Hey, you might want to check the track too, man. If you have a track anywhere around your neighborhood, like a lot of people are generally congregating. A lot of little kids just are literally running around the track. Like, you'd be shocked. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't let somebody else be already going around. Just take them out to the track and then walk and then see what happens. And then next thing you know, they're stomping up and down the track. I see them every day.
Burn off that energy.
Yeah. So if you know anywhere there's a track around, you might want to pop around there, take yourself a couple of laps, and let them burn off some energy, because they are laughing at that.
Yeah, you definitely have to assess for you, what feels safe. And I know for me, we have a circle of like maybe 2 families that we all are following all the guidelines. Everyone's home, and that's our little COVID group. And so, this weekend we're going to go on a bike ride. So we'll be spaced out and we'll be with that family, and we'll be wearing masks. But for our family, finding some of those negotiations, not with everyone and all that, but to just find a couple people where we can outside distance and stay safe. That's been like life for us, and thinking through how we're going to maintain this marathon, because this has been a while. So we are coming up on time. I just wanted to mention that we are here. Academic coaches are not going anywhere. We've got great workshops coming up. We've available for you to book an appointment. This is our screenshot of our website. All you have to do is go here and you'll pull up our calendars, and you can meet individually to talk about this or any other study skills, time management, textbook reading. I mean, you name it. What are your goals? We want to talk about them. And this is our lovely team. And again, we are here this semester, next semester. We're not going anywhere. We're all virtual right now. Typically, we're at a few other campuses: Highland, Round Rock, San Gabriel, and Riverside.